the ends of the log by itself.
Both stems.
Both ends, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, not
Yeah.
as depicted.
No. That's just for example purposes only. Yeah. So you're obviously going to need some logs to do this, and it'll take about 30 logs per acre. They're going to need to be about 15 to 20 feet long and around 6 to 12 inches in diameter. So if you don't have that material, if you don't have that log material, what you can try and use are fiber straw wattles. And they were talking about that again. The park was talking about using those. The difference with the straw wattles is you don't need to alternate them because the water can pass through the material. And so you just stake them into the ground. Again, you need to have good contact with the ground though, okay? So you can't have spaces underneath the wattle or areas where the wattle doesn't come in contact with the ground. I think most recommendations say that they prefer you to stake them every 10 feet. The spacing between the wattles though is going to depend on the site. It's going to depend on the slopes and other aspects, but you can follow the manufacturer's guidelines and they'll help you install those.
Where do you get a wattle?
I'm not
I've
sure.
I've never seen a wattle.
There are different, I'm sure different suppliers around the region, and we've been looking into trying to come up with a product and vendor guide for people interested in trying to buy some of these or invest in some of these erosion control methods. I'm not sure who those people would be though.
Look at
Yeah, they're right.
Go into business.
We can make
around.
those ourselves.
So you also want to make sure or try and turn the ends of I know the picture doesn't show it, but turn the ends up because you want to trap that sediment with these wattles. Any sediment that builds up behind there. And just like the contour logs, the spaces behind the log or the wattles can fill up with sediment. Okay, so silt fencing. I'm sure most everybody has seen silt fencing. Okay. This is just another thing that you can use to control that slope length. A couple of things that you want to keep in mind. Sometimes this is just a geotextile material, and sometimes it has a kind of a woven wire backing that you can put on it for added stability. You want to make sure that your stakes are obviously on the downhill side, and then also you want to bury the last 6 to 8 inches of the silt fence into the ground in a trench on the uphill side, okay? And that'll prevent any water from running underneath the silt fence. The EPA and NRCS have some really good recommendations as far as the materials you need for stakes, the size those stakes need to be, how far those stakes need to be drilled into the ground, how much silt fence needs to be exposed above the ground, and that is all available through that guide that I mentioned on the website. Again, like most of the rest of these treatments, you need to inspect the silt fences frequently, especially silt fences because the sediment, the whole purpose of the silt fence is to trap the sediment as this porous membrane filters that water through. Okay, so these can really fill up. General rule of thumb for installing silt fence: you don't want to try and capture more than a half an acre of drainage per 100 feet of silt fence. That's just the general rule of thumb that most people recommend. So, if you need some technical assistance, if you want somebody to come out and take a look at your property and see if you think you have some issues, any of these three would be great. Roxanne can come out, and she works with the Habitat Conservation Plan. And so especially if you have any Houston Toad related questions, you can contact her. Here's my contact information in Temple. I'd be happy to come down and take a look, offer any advice. And then the NRCS here in Bastrop could also come out and take a look at your site as well. Finally, I recommend if you're interested in trying to get some cost share monies to implement these, take a look at this card that Roxanne has available out front that outlines some of the cost share programs that might be able to assist with implementing some of these treatments. So I'll put this back on contact information. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
On the contour log terraces, like
Yeah.
got logs, some of them are just charred, burnt, and some of them are still kind of real woody. Is there any difference between those and how I should use those?
I don't think that it would make a difference between, how far along the log is or how burnt the log is. Really all you're looking for is a barrier. Okay, so you're just trying to establish a barrier along the ground.
So a completely charcoal log would be just as good as a log?
It should be. Yeah, you want to make sure that, if you use that soil to seal it up along the top edge of the log, but it should provide the same benefit.
Is there anything that can be done with these more spindly things like Yopon or brush that you cut down in terms of using them as a erosion, reducing agent?
You can try, what you could do is kind of windrow it, carefully windrow it. If you have enough of the material, you can cut it and put it in windrows along the contour. And
What does that mean?
just kind of stack it up or pile it along, in long, low piles. And what that'll do is it'll help slow the water.
But it needs to be fairly dense, I guess.
It would need to be fairly dense, but the most important thing is it need to make good contact with the ground. So if it's really
That's what it doesn't do, because it's
exactly,
wiggly and stuff.
so that's why that would be a difficult material.
Is there anything, you didn't mention doing anything in the water channel, like these are slopes leading down to some kind of water channel. Do you try to obstruct them? Or?
There are some in-channel treatments you can do, but you can really make a mess out of the site's hydrology, the stream's hydrology, if you start messing around in the channel. So you really have to know what you're doing. And what we would recommend is if you want to go that route, if you want to put straw bales in a channel, contact the NRCS and get in touch with them, and they can help you with kind of the technical aspects of that, of any sort of in-channel treatments. Any other questions?
So what do you recommend doing with all this Yopon? I mean, it's like, I always thought it's burning it, but if you scatter, I've had foresters or arborists say, well, don't keep the organic matter to decay here on your property instead of giving off the carbon.
If you scattered it out at the very, you would get maybe a little bit of benefit just from something intercepting raindrops before it hit the ground. And then
Certainly anything is
it'll-
better than nothing.
Yeah, ultimately it'll break down and provide some organic material and some cover for wildlife. So at the bare minimum, break it up into as small pieces as feasible, or not at all, if you don't have time for that. But just scattering it out would be better than nothing.
Yeah.
When I operate a forestry mower, and you make windrows out of the Yopon, and then I mulch it, and you have a nice contact with the soil, and the mulch is long and it's interlocking, so it acts as not like a mulch that comes out of the chipper.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it can hold fairly well.
Is it like a ground mulch? Is that what you're talking about, the long kind of stringy stuff?
It's a skid steer that
Yeah.
drives over, and it can dispose of a lot of material that's on the ground, and it covers the ground wherever it is. Whatever location you're, it's all going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But I've worked for people that do on the slope of the hill country in the cedar. They make windrows of the cedar, and then I'll mulch it, and it acts like a strip, a continuous strip. And they do this on the sides of the deer hills.
One thing, or a couple of things that I would caution about windrowing, and it's one of the reasons why we didn't put it in the guide, is one, if you're going to do it mechanically, you can really expose some areas, and we really, especially with the Houston toad, we want to really be careful about that adjacent to breeding sites. And also, we definitely don't want to make sure, or definitely want to make sure that that material doesn't end up in a channel. Because that could have some serious negative impacts as well. So it would be fine to do, just make sure that you're leaving enough buffers on you know, sensitive areas, wetlands, riparian areas, and then you're not putting it on such steep slopes leading down into a channel that stuff is going to make its way into that channel.
So has anybody seen any Houston toads?
I can't answer that.
Anybody seen any?
I don't think anybody's gonna tell you if they have.
Oh, keep it secret.
It's not breeding season yet. We've had a couple of rains, and we know that those where the location is known did come to the surface after those rains. So we know they're still out there. But we're not into breeding season yet, so we haven't had any breeding activity, which is when we tend to see the greater numbers.
Well, the leafcutter ants survived. They're swarming all over my house.
Yeah.
Will the greenbrier survive, or was it wiped out?
No, it survived.
Yeah. If you didn't want it, if you were hoping that the fire would take care of it, it probably just made it worse. It probably just made it mad.
Should you go ahead and start killing it now, or give it a head start?
Daniel, you want to make a
The Yopon or the?
greenbrier?
Well, I don't know the greenbrier. The old one looks like it's pretty dead.
Is green
The
briar
Yopon's
bull
gonna
metal?
resprout.
Yeah, the Yopon will come back.
And the greenbrier is gonna respray. It's really hard to kill a greenbrier with herbicide. If you're vigilant, you can do it, but it's hard. And the Yopon, it may be top killed, but it's definitely coming back. The greenbrier has a bigger, greener, and brushier underground, and so it's got so many reserves waiting to resprout. Like Dan said, that they're very difficult to kill, and they have a waxy coating on their leaves that it's hard to get them to uptake any herbicide. From my experience, rather than anything you need to treat with herbicide, they say let it grow a little bit. Let it get enough leaves on it to get enough surface area to absorb herbicide rather than hitting it right when it pops up. You want to wait give it a couple months of growth.
So wait on the ball metal too.
Well, bull nettle, I mean, that's an annual.
It's coming up right now.
It's coming up right now, but I don't know if I'd waste any herbicide on it.
Wait till the spring.
It's, for everyone in the field, there's lots of seed out there. You can if you want, the herbicide. I believe I pulled that stuff up if it will be, depending on how many acres you're dealing with.
So the Yopon would be better behind the herbicide when that means something.
Yeah.
So any help with the harvester ants?
If you have any other natural resources questions, please visit the table out in the lobby. Many of the materials that Chuck referred to are available there.
Yeah.
The short form, in fact, I saw one there, the short erosion control brochure is out front. The long one, as Chuck mentioned, is available online. And look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, almost everything that was in the presentation should be available online on the county website.
14.9 kilobytes.
Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. But thank you very much.
Thank you.